It's the multi-billion-dollar question. When will international travel return? Despite the state's border wars threatening holidays and family catch-ups, the nation's largest travel agent has restarted its global travel sale, just 1 week after Qantas said it's going to start flying overseas from July. For more on this, I'm joined by Flight Centre CEO Graham Turner. Graham, thanks for your time. Flight Centre has had a bold approach. It's launched deals to Hawaii, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan and Fiji, as well as cruises, even though the international travel market is still a few months away and it's going to be a far cry from where it once was. What's prompted the decision?
Oh, look, I think it's fairly obvious, and I think Alan Joyce has basically said that with Qantas, that the best, it does look like that international travel is probably going to resume to some extent in about July, or maybe a little later. Qantas has got flights obviously on in July. We're obviously selling flights. A lot of it does depend on the government, the federal government, making sure that people can travel if they want to, and you'll almost certainly need to be vaccinated. So that's probably the main thing. But with cruising and that, we've been booking a lot of 2022, 2023. So cruising probably will be later this year. Perhaps November, December rather than July, August.
And internationally, there are some relatively safe or COVID-free environments that people can go to. I think Fiji has a very low incidence of it. I mean, New Zealand, our nearest neighbour, and of course, there's other alternatives that I mentioned, Singapore and Japan, Hawaii. Are you confident that the measures in place in those countries will make for a safe travel experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think they will. There's no doubt about that. The problem will be whether you have to go into quarantine on the way back, and in the first place, as I said, whether you're actually allowed to travel for general purposes, which is not the case at the moment. And that's why I think that vaccination is going to be the key, both to get on the planes and to not only get into these countries that are relatively safe now, but to get back into Australia without quarantine. No one wants to do 2 weeks quarantine coming back into Australia, and for good reason. I know because I've just done it.
I hope you're well looked after, and I don't wish it upon anyone. But you've been through your industry has been through a very, very tough time. Flight Centre has certainly not been immune to the difficulties in the travel industry. What were the most significant impacts of COVID on your business and your business model?
Oh, look, it's been terrible, and I mean, we're not the only ones. We're a large company. We're in 23 countries. We're listed in the ASX. Raised a lot of money from our shareholders. Tourism, and obviously the airlines, particularly the international and domestic airlines, the airports. So we're not alone in this. Events companies. It's been a horrific time for us. Our revenue, and we're not doing too badly, is down 80-85% over the last 6 months, and worse than that before there. So we've been increasing our revenue slowly, but and fairly slightly over the last 6 months. We certainly hope to do that over the next 6, but until there's widespread vaccination and until the government allows people in Australia to leave for tourism, it's going to be a struggle for a while for us and companies like us.
Yeah, that's for sure, and it's very important, of course, that Australians take up the opportunities to travel intrastate as well and interstate. Are you seeing a pickup in that, or is there still too much uncertainty around domestic bookings?
Look, you're right, Cory. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's been caused by the total lack of consistency between the states. They open and shut borders at a whim for no good rational reason. Certainly, I think, and I saw Alan Joyce the other day, that the New South Wales government has taken a really quite a practical and a sensible stance on this. But they're the standouts, and unfortunately, some of the other states just are doing it at a whim without any science or any generally good effect. So it's for domestic tourism, for domestic travel, for domestic corporate travel. There is still a lot of uncertainty. So we just hope that they'll get some consistency in the way they treat this, because we are one country, we're one Australia, and we should have one policy in terms of the borders. And I certainly have seen no positive impact on COVID control by shutting borders. It is about tracing, testing and tracing, and local hotspots. Basically, what like the New South Wales government's been pretty good at. Some of the other governments haven't been too bad either, but some of them, have been terrible, really.